Football has seen its fair share of controversies, scandals, betrayals, shocking downfalls. But how many footballers have found themselves in a brutal legal war against their own family? Neville Southall wasn't just a goalkeeper, he was a force of nature. A man who clawed his way from the working-class streets to become one of the greatest shot-stoppers in football history. He conquered English football, lifted every major domestic trophy, and at his peak, he was untouchable. But legends don't always get fairy tale endings. What should have been a celebrated retirement turned into something unthinkable. A courtroom battle, a father suing his own daughter, a bitter fight over £55,000 worth of football memorabilia, items that once symbolized his glorious career. The man who spent his life saving goals was now fighting to save his own legacy, at the cost of his own blood. This is the story of Neville Southall, from cleaning streets to conquering Europe, from Premier League icon to a social outcast, from saving goals to fighting his own family. And it all started with a boy who was told he'd never make it. If you love gripping football stories, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We bring you the untold truths, the rise, the fall, and the legacies of the game's biggest legends. Now, let's dive in. Some footballers are destined for greatness from the moment they first kick a ball. Others have to fight for it. Neville Southall, he had to do more than fight. He had to survive. Born on September 16, 1958, in Llandudno, Wales, Southall wasn't surrounded by luxury or elite coaching. There were no scouts watching him, no academies calling his name. By his late teens, he wasn't signing contracts, he was collecting garbage. By day, he worked as a bin man. By night, he trained alone, punishing himself with extra drills, desperate to get noticed. It wasn't just football he loved, it was an obsession. His first real break came at Llandudno Swifts, a tiny club in the lower leagues. But even there, he was overlooked. No one believed a short, unrefined, part-time goalkeeper could make it at the highest level. But Southall refused to listen. In 1977, he moved to Bangor City, where he caught his first real taste of competitive football, and for the first time, people started paying attention. One of those people was Bury manager Dave Hatton. By 1978, Southall had made the jump to the English league system, signing for Bury in the 3rd Division. It was a massive step up, but he still wasn't close to where he wanted to be. For 3 years, he battled in the lower leagues, often doubted, often overlooked. He was good, but good wasn't enough. He needed something bigger. Then, in 1980, Everton came calling. Howard Kendall, Everton's manager, was searching for a goalkeeper with potential. Southall's name was mentioned, a trial was offered, an opportunity was given. This was it. The bin man turned footballer was about to step into the biggest challenge of his life. Would he rise to the occasion, or would his dream finally shatter? When Neville Southall arrived at Everton in 1981, nobody paid much attention. A £150,000 signing from Bury, he wasn't exactly the marquee arrival fans were hoping for. In fact, for his first few months at the club, he was nothing more than a backup keeper, sitting on the bench while seasoned veteran Jim Arnold kept the #1 spot. But Southall wasn't here to sit on the sidelines. He trained harder than anyone, first to arrive, last to leave. His obsession with improvement reached new heights, studying strikers' techniques, analyzing the flight of the ball, practicing his reactions until exhaustion. He wasn't just competing for a starting spot, he was preparing to be the best. His chance finally came in 1983. Kendall gave him a run in the first team, and Southall seized the moment. Shot after shot, save after save, Everton had found their wall. By the end of the season, he was the undisputed #1, and then he became unstoppable. From 1984 to 1987, Southall led Everton through the most dominant period in the club's history. 2 First Division titles, an FA Cup, a European Cup Winners' Cup. He wasn't just winning silverware, he was defining an era. But it wasn't just about trophies, it was how he won them. His performances were supernatural. One-on-one situations, unbeatable, reflex saves, lightning fast, commanding the defense, like a general in battle. In the 1984 FA Cup final, he shut out Watford to secure Everton's first major trophy in over a decade. The following season, he helped them conquer Europe, lifting the Cup Winners' Cup in 1985, Everton's greatest achievement on the continental stage. And then came the season that changed everything. 1985-86. Southall was at the peak of his powers. Week after week, he produced performances that defied belief. Everton had the best defense in England, and Southall was the reason why. By the time the 1985 Ballon d'Or voting came around, he wasn't just considered England's best goalkeeper. He was recognized as the best in the world. But just when it seemed like nothing could stop him, fate had other plans. At his peak, Neville Southall was untouchable, the best goalkeeper in the world, a fortress behind Everton's golden era. But football is ruthless. It builds legends, and just as quickly, it breaks them. In 1986, Southall suffered a devastating blow. During a World Cup qualifier for Wales against the Republic of Ireland, he fractured his ankle, an injury that would change everything. For months, he was sidelined, forced to watch as Everton crumbled without him. They had just won the First Division title, but now, Liverpool reclaimed dominance. The injury didn't just rob Southall of his fitness, it shattered Everton's momentum. He returned, but something had changed. The golden era was slipping away. Everton reached the 1989 FA Cup final, and it should have been another moment of glory. But instead, it ended in heartbreak, a 3-2 defeat to Liverpool in extra time. Southall, the man who once single-handedly won games, could only watch as Everton fell short. Then came the 1990s, a decade Everton fans would rather forget. The club was sinking. The dominant, trophy-winning side of the 80s was gone. No league titles, no European football, just survival. Managers came and went, but nothing changed. And Southall, he was still Everton's number one, still loyal, still fighting, but time was catching up. His reactions weren't as sharp, his reflexes weren't as quick. The man who once stood on top of the world was now struggling to keep up. But Southall wasn't one to walk away. He played on deep into his late 30s, holding on to the club he loved. But by 1997, Everton had moved on. At 39 years old, Neville Southall was no longer their first choice. The same fans who once worshipped him now saw him as part of the past. On November 8, 1997, after 17 years, Neville Southall played his final game for Everton, a legend fading into the background. But Southall's story wasn't over. His career may have been winding down, but his battles were only just beginning. For most footballers, retirement is a time to reflect, to step back from the spotlight, to enjoy the legacy they've built. But for Neville Southall, his biggest battles were still ahead. After leaving Everton in 1997, Southall refused to walk away from the game. He kept playing, longer than anyone expected. Lower league clubs, non-league football, even player coach roles. He couldn't let go. He played his final professional match in 2002 at the age of 43. But once the gloves were off for good, a new chapter began. One filled with controversy, outspoken opinions, and personal struggles. Southall, once known for his silence off the pitch, became one of the most vocal figures in football. He didn't hold back. He criticized the modern game, slamming the way clubs were run, attacking the rise of money in football, and calling out the FA for failing to support grassroots football. Some admired his honesty, others thought he was bitter. But it wasn't just football he spoke about. Southall became a fierce advocate for social issues, LGBTQ+ rights, mental health awareness, and support for marginalized communities. His Twitter account, once expected to be a nostalgic trip down memory lane, turned into one of the most politically charged platforms in football. Fans were divided. Some saw him as a hero. Others thought he'd lost his way. But while his public persona was changing, behind closed doors, his personal life was unraveling. In 2020, news broke that no one expected. Neville Southall was suing his own daughter. The story sent shockwaves through football. The man who had once stood as a leader, a protector of his team, was now locked in a bitter legal war with his own blood. The lawsuit? A financial dispute that turned toxic. Southall claimed his daughter had taken control of his business interests behind his back. She denied the accusations, and what followed was a courtroom battle that played out in headlines, tarnishing the image of a once-beloved football icon. For years, Southall had fought against strikers, against critics, against the decline of his club. But now, he was fighting his own family. A brutal, painful twist to the story of a man who had once seemed unbreakable. For decades, Neville Southall was the last line of defense, a man who carried Everton on his shoulders, defying the odds, defying logic, and, at times, defying gravity itself. He wasn't just Everton's greatest goalkeeper, he was one of the greatest the game had ever seen. His prime years in the 1980s set a new standard for goalkeeping. His dominance in the English top flight, his fearless performances on the biggest stages, and his undeniable impact on Everton's golden era cemented his place in history. 2 league titles, 2 FA Cups, a European trophy, a Footballer of the Year award. Southall wasn't just good, he was exceptional. But football doesn't define his legacy alone. In retirement, Southall became a figure of contradiction. A man once known for his quiet determination became a loud, unapologetic voice in football and beyond. He challenged the system, fought for causes bigger than the game, and refused to conform to expectations. Some admire him for it. Others see him as a fallen icon. His personal struggles, his outspoken nature, and his very public legal battle with his daughter have clouded the way many view him today. But does that erase his greatness? Does controversy override footballing immortality? For Everton fans, the answer is simple. No matter what happens off the pitch, Neville Southall will always be the man who stood between the posts when Everton were kings. The man who made the impossible look routine. The man who went from a bin man to the best goalkeeper in the world. For all the highs, all the lows, all the chaos, one thing remains. Neville Southall was a legend. And legends, no matter how complicated, never truly fade away. Neville Southall's story is one of glory, struggle, and resilience. From lifting trophies to fighting battles off the pitch, his journey is as gripping as football itself. But what do you think? Is he the greatest goalkeeper in English football history? Or has his legacy been overshadowed by his controversies? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into football's most fascinating figures, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. We've got plenty more legends, untold stories, and football mysteries coming your way. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.